Welcome home, Raiders. Tonight, Hearthstone World Championships, HCT Week 1 recap, and, of course, Overwatch League is still going strong. And we'll find out how it affects other industries. As Convert to Raid presents Battlenet Sports. Everybody, my name is Pat Crane. Welcome to Battlenet Sports, and just a couple of things before we get into the actual sports part of the show. First of all, I want to find out from you guys how you like this show so far. Do you like it? Do you want to see more of it? Let me know. Either if you're on YouTube, go into the comments below. Let me know what you think of the Battlenet Sports. And if you're not on YouTube, you can always hit me up in Twitter, either at Convert to Raid or at Pat Crane. That's with a K. Or you can always email us, converttoraid@gmail.com. So I just want to figure out if this is what you are looking for, if you enjoy the content that we have provided you so far. This being the third episode, figured it was time to ask you what you think. And then another thing before we get into the pro sports stuff that we've been covering, is that TESPA. They have released kind of the registration stuff for all of the college esports that they are going to be covering. So TESPA, they do scholarship rewards for college players, and registration is open up for a bunch of things. Heroes of the Dorm. Registration has opened as of January 22nd. It will close beginning of February 5th. So you only got a couple of weeks to get in there. And regional play begins February 6th, ending in late March, actually early April. So there's that. StarCraft 2, they've got $35,000 scholarship prize pool, and the registration has been open for a week, and the first qualifier starts February 10th. And for Hearthstone, registration opened yesterday. There's $150,000 in scholarships and prizing, and the registration closes February 15th. So if you're in college and you want to play in these different leagues where you can win scholarship awards, which is great. Here's the dorm. You get free tuition, essentially. You get your tuition paid for with Heroes of the Dorm. So make sure to check all that stuff out. So those two things, make sure to let us know what you think of the show. And also the TESPA stuff, go over to TESPA.org for more information on all of that stuff. And now we will swing into the news. HCT Hearthstone World Championships were just this last weekend in Amsterdam. We talked about it last week with Jocelyn Moffat, and so she's back to kind of give us the recap, talk about the surprises. I was surprised by a couple of different things and all that kind of stuff. Hello, Joss.
Hey, Pat. How's it going?
Good. So Kalento and Hoj.
Right?
The two guys that were like big winners in 2017, they kind of left early.
They did. You're jumping right to my surprising knockout section, but I understand. It was crazy.
I was thinking that those guys would be, top dogs in the tourney for sure, and because they're like a recognizable name for me, and I'm not a huge Hearthstone fan when it comes to the esport part of things, but I know those names. They are familiar to me, and when you see them knocked out in 2 games, it's like, whoa.
Well, Kalento specifically has been around since like literally day one. He's been building decks. People have been, like he's been winning tournaments. Everyone wants to be him, play what he plays. He's so well known and he's been around forever. He was actually, there was a poll on the Play Hearthstone website on the forums that was basically saying like, oh, once everyone had gone in and picked their champions, because you could pick your champions for decks or for packs. Mm-hmm. And once everyone had done that, they were like, oh, informal poll, like who did you pick? And Kalento was winning by far. He had like 20% of the vote. Everyone else, the next closest person had like 7% of the vote. Like it was way far and away. He was the favorite. So yeah, you're right. To see him go out 0-2, it was same with Nyria as well. Who have all like he and Kalento, Hoj, Nyria, all of them had been to World Championships before. Some of them had actually won previous HCT events in 2017 with that was Hoy, and to see them go 0-2 was just like, wow.
Yeah.
And they kept doing things like they were showing their families and all the cheering and everything else. And then it was like, 0-2. Okay. I guess we made a big deal about this guy that you're not going to see for the rest of the weekend. Whoops.
Hey, at least you get a free trip to Amsterdam, right?
Right.
So that's not too bad. But let's talk a little bit about the series as a whole. What other things did you notice moving through the weekend?
Oh man, there were so many great moments. I mean, it was probably, I think, the most exciting, most edge of my seat Hearthstone that I could ever remember. The tournament as a whole was just insane, and I feel like it's obviously it's a mirror of the way Hearthstone is right now. That there's so many big, crazy, swingy kind of cards, and that was one of the biggest complaints I saw from people over the weekend, is saying, like it really seemed like whoever drew like the card won the game, and but when you've got the top 16 in the world, and this was definitely the best top 16 we've ever had, and I think that was because of the way that you actually qualified for HCT this time instead of having 4 from each region, which we talked about last week.
Right.
When the field is that close, I mean, of course it's going to come down to card draws because they all have this insanely high skill level. So, sure. There were some really awesome moments. I think there was a game between Tom 60229 and Doc Pone. They were playing Rogue versus Druid, and Doc had a 12.5% chance to get like a game-winning card off the Lich King, and he drew Army of the Dead. All of his minions were already buffed because of a Keleseth draw earlier on, and Tom just, even though he had an amazing draw, right after that happened into Spreading Plague, it still wasn't enough. And just that game, like, it was just one of those, like, oh yeah, the only thing that's going to keep him alive is Spreading Plague, and he drew Spreading Plague. Like it was one of those games where it was like, oh, the only way that Doc could win this is if he gets Army of the Dead off Lich King. He got Army of the Dead. Like it was like this just crazy one after another, amazing like chance after amazing chance. And the thing about these players is like they know all those chances. They have all those stats in their heads. So like to see the choices that they made in order to kind of give themselves the best chances to win was just, oh man, it was awesome to watch. So
right. And then in the finals we had Frozen versus Tom 60229, right? I always get the numbers mixed up. But and that was a real nail biter because Tom was on the ropes for all 3 games that he won. For the last 3 games because he lost the first 2. So, yeah. I mean, that was just kind of insane.
Well, and then we had the moment where after Frozen won his second game in the finals, somebody accidentally made the confetti go off.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome. I love that. And it's like, don't celebrate
I don't think
yet.
Frozen did. Yeah, I don't think Frozen did because I think, that's got to be enough to like throw you off your game. You could see the faces on both the players like, oh my God, I just feel like that was just a giant, like, bad juju jinx, right? Like, because Frozen awesome. Didn't win from then on.
That was awesome. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. And then, what was the play that I mentioned to you yesterday? I'm trying to remember. I think it was the 4th game between those guys, and Tom just crushed him in like 5 moves. Oh, it was the Van Cleef.
Yes, the 10-10 Van Cleef, which has had all of Reddit talking about it needs to be Hall of Fame.
On turn 3 or whatever. And it was just, it was like, whoa, what is this? And if you haven't seen that particular game and you are a fan of Hearthstone, watch it. It is really amazing. And and he had that, and he also had what's his name? Oh God, what was that other card that he ended him off with? It was oh shoot, now I can't remember. Anyway, it was a good game, and it was over so quickly that in a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Are you talking about Leroy?
Oh yeah, Leroy. How can I forget Leroy?
I don't know. You should know this one, Pat. It's a Warcraft thing.
I know. Anyway, but so Tom gets $250K.
Yes.
And it put a mildly pleased smile on his face for probably about 5 minutes.
Right?
I'm guessing. He's a very serious guy.
He is. And I mean, I think I saw him smile over like maybe twice over the entire course of the weekend. But yeah, he is also our first winner from outside of North America or Europe. All of our previous champions have been from one of those two regions. So It was really nice to see that we actually got some representation from outside, and that, APAC is finally getting its kind of like recognition that it deserves, because for a while it really felt like, especially when you looked at the composition of the championships, which we talked about last week, where we had 11 of the 16 were from either North America or Europe. There were a lot of people that were just saying that, China and APAC were lagging behind the rest of the crowd, and that Europe was going to dominate. And that was actually one of the big stories of the weekend, was how poorly Europe actually performed. They went from 6 players to only 2 players making it into the quarterfinals. So it was really crazy to see. They had 0 players in the semifinals. So the semifinals was made up entirely of there's a 1 NA, 2 APAC, and 1 Chinese player. So to see Europe not even make it through to the semifinals when they dominated the field going in was surprising to everybody.
Yeah.
And also China's Jason Zhao fell to Frozen in the semifinals, but that was his second semifinal appearance in 2 years. So he actually lost to the world champion Pavel last year in 2016. So he had another very, very good, very consistent showing. But yeah, the big story this year was definitely Europe and their poor showing. So I was really glad that we had a non-NA, non-EU champion. I think it's good for Hearthstone in general, and I think they've been really taking a more global focus. Right. And I think it's showing. So
well, if you're going to call it a world championship, include the world.
Exactly.
I mean, let's do that. It's kind of like baseball World Series. I don't think so. It's just NA. Really,
right?
if we're really going to come down to it. Anything else for Hearthstone stuff for the tournament?
Just really quickly, the Twitch viewership was almost 300,000 people at its peak, but we had almost 2 million people watching in total. Over 1.5 million of them coming from China. But that was so across all of the language streams, we got almost 2 million people watching the World Championship across the weekend. So that's
crazy.
That's awesome. It was very, very impressive. And it's great to see. I mean, obviously, China, just population wise, is much larger than any other audience. But just to see those kind of numbers coming in to watch Hearthstone, I think was fantastic. Mm-hmm. They also, Blizzard partnered with HS Replay. So if you guys aren't familiar with HS Replay, they make Hearthstone deck tracker, and quite a lot of the top players use it. And so basically, HS Replay is a really great service who track a whole bunch of deck stats. They do like meta reports and all that kind of stuff. But it's like, instead of once a week, it's like almost like up to the minute. I think they update once every hour or so. Wow. So it's a really good way to get stats about your decks and to see what other people are playing on ladder. So Blizzard partnered with them, and they were showing us stats throughout the weekend, which was really cool. So win rates of the decks and everything else. But I did find it a little bit odd that Blizzard didn't use their own internal stats when they were talking about, different deck win rates and matchups and things like that. But, I'm glad that HS Replay, because I use them. I think they're a great service. So I'm glad that they got some airtime.
Sure.
But the interesting thing about that was Highlander Priest had the best overall win rate, although it still wasn't, anything to really write home about. But the innovative decks, which was really, I think, the other story of this weekend, Frozen's lineup was a lot different than some of the other ones, including a really cool mage deck. But so basically, Highlander Priest had the best overall win rate, but the innovative decks were second, and Aggro Druid, which everyone thought was going to be great, performed really poorly with the lowest win rate. I think by the end of the tournament, I don't even believe it was over 40%. So
wow.
Yeah, it was an interesting weekend.
Wow. Sounds like it. I might have to go back and watch some of these VODs because you are piquing my interest with some of these stories. Thank you, Jocelyn, very much. And when is the next big tournament for Hearthstone? Do we know?
So the next big tournament, I believe, is actually only in a few weeks. And we'll probably talk about it next week. But there's a whole bunch of changes that they're making to the way that you qualify for HCT in 2018, including 27 of what they're calling HCT tour stops. So we're actually getting a kind of like a LAN tournament once every 2 to 3 weeks throughout 2018. So
wow.
There's a lot of really big, really cool Hearthstone events coming.
Man.
But there are some disadvantages to the new system as well. But
sure.
Yeah, that's
I tell
for
you,
another time, Pat.
I tell you, Blizzard is really stepping up this year on esports, and you can tell in every single game. I mean, they are really making some big moves on all of the different games that they have, and I, for one, am very happy that I started up Battlenet Sports.
Good.
So thanks, Joss, and we will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you so much, Pat.
Week 1 of the HGC just got done with, essentially, and so we thought we'd bring back Jules Scott to talk a little bit about her impressions and all that kind of stuff. Welcome, Jules.
Hi, Pat. Hi, guys. How are you today?
So how was week 1 of HGC?
Was really good. Very exciting in certain ways, a little bit disappointing in others. It's nice to see some of the new teams in action, which was probably the most exciting thing. But the meta is a little stale right now, so the games were a little bit boring. Some of them. Yeah, you know what? I was really super excited by what happened between Tempo Storm and Heroes Hearth eSports, which was what I had predicted was going to be the premier game of the weekend. Okay. And not only did the players show up, but the meta was really they had some really fun picks in that game.
Like what kind of picks?
So we had everybody's picking the same thing right now. Like the Shimada brothers, Genji and Hanzo are either picked or banned in every game. ETC, Greymane, Lucio, Uther, Rhaegar. It's the same thing every time. Okay. Then we get to this game and they're bringing out Chromie, Kel'Thuzad, Malthael, and even an Asmodan pick, which just the casters almost fell over because nobody picks Asmodan, especially in competitive play, and he wound up losing. But it was actually a really exciting game to watch. Because if you're a Heroes player and you've played Asmodan at all, it's all reliant upon how exciting it is for Asmodan to stack up a certain talent so that he hits harder and bigger every time. And it's a coordination effort with his team that he has to get to that point. So everybody's watching the stacks. What's the stack count? How's the stacks going? How far should he be? And then it's that kind of anticipation. Is this character going to nuke everything that he comes into contact with, which he almost did.
Gotcha. I just remember, I haven't played Asmodan for quite some time, but I just remember the Asmo Dunk build, and I'm just all about it.
That is exactly the build. Yeah. And
I love
it's the thing. It's so fun.
It is very fun to play. Mm-hmm. For sure. So what else did we see this week? Was there any other big action that really was notable, or were there certain teams that were just looking super awesome, super impressive?
Yes. So I thought that Tempo Storm looked as amazing as we expected them to look. Heroes Hearth eSports has a ton of potential. They looked really strong. Even though they went up against Tempo Storm and they lost, there was a lot of fun back and forth going on, creative picks, watching some really outstanding plays. Those games were tight and they were fun. Team Freedom looked really strong. They look like they have a good roster this year. They look like they could really be again towards the top of NAHGC. Mm-hmm. And then there's Simplicity. So these guys went from being superstars, they went to becoming, they renamed themselves to Old Gods and picked up a lot of players who were around for a while. It's funny because, you know, when they talk about 2015 being like the senior citizens of Heroes eSports when you were around in 2015, and that's why they called themselves Old Gods. But then they got picked up by Simplicity Esports, and it was a pretty strong showing. And now these guys have been around for a while. I call them experienced. I don't call them like the old guard. I think that's silly. It's been 2 years. Like, why are we talking about these people being bit?
They're OG. They're the original gamers of Heroes. So, yeah, no.
Is there an OG level though? Like when you say OG and then it's 2 years ago, like is that really OG?
No, when I think OG, it's got to be 10 plus years. 10 plus, okay. I'll give you OG, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, see, and then we're just like, forget OG. There ain't no thing like OG.
They're not OG.
Now.
They're not
OG. So Simplicity is a team that you should be watching if you're out there enjoying HGC. And if you've also taken a look at Gale Force Esports, these guys are going to need some work. And I had predicted that there were some shot calling issues for their games that they played. They went 1-1 on the weekend. I don't think they've got it yet, but they could because they've got really good players and good potential. So,
well, it's a long season, right? I mean, it's going to be a long time. So they've got plenty of time to kind of get things handled, I guess.
Yeah. I forgot to mention Team 12 too, and I got to mention those guys.
Yep.
People have them chosen as the top of the rankings for HGC. I have had some doubts on that. They performed very well, but they only played one game, and it's against the only team that came in because there's a team that got booted out, disbanded. So it's like these guys didn't qualify for the Crucible. They got in anyway. They're just an inexperienced team, LFM Esports. Mm-hmm. So we didn't see the full potential of Team 12, but we saw some really good play and we saw some solid shot calling. So,
well, and it was a 3-0 win at least, and so I mean, you get kind of, you know, they dominated.
Dominated, but they also dominated against a team that has never played a game in HGC.
Sure. Well, so I'm not qualifying it that way. I'm just like, hey, you know, at least they swept on that, so they're looking pretty strong against those guys anyway.
It was very clear that they were most dominant in that matchup. But so I'm still putting my power rankings up towards the top for Tempo Storm, Team Freedom, Team 12. Those guys I'm putting in the top 3.
Okay.
Heroes Hearth at number 4. That's where I'm, this is not really reflected in the rankings right now because some teams have only played one game, some have played 2. We'll check in when we get towards the middle and to see if I'm right. But those are my top 4.
Sure.
So every game counts right now, though.
Well, of course. Looking ahead into week 2, are there any particular matchups that you are like, oh, this is going to be really, really good?
So we start right off the bat on Friday at 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific. You get Tempo Storm versus Team 12. Like, let's go.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong matchup.
Sorry, Pat. I'm taking from like 4 on Friday. I'm gonna watch it.
Hey, do what you got to do, man. I understand.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. And then you got the next game on Friday night, which is Team Freedom versus Heroes Hearth Esports. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a really good game. Space Station Gaming and Heroes Hearth on Saturday. It's going to be a good one. And then, gosh, look at this. On Sunday, Simplicity versus Team 12 and Team Freedom versus Tempo Storm. There's going to be some killer good games this weekend, guys. You should be watching. For real.
You should be watching. Also, just another thing of note that I want to throw in there, and this is on the EU side of things. Mm-hmm. Method is now playing. Method has a team. So
aren't you excited?
That's pretty awesome.
It is exciting.
I like that. So
it was funny. I had seen I hung out with Dari, who is one of the top ranking people in the administration for Method, and I had asked her straight out if Method was ever thinking about getting into Heroes Esports, and she kind of gave me this sly grin, like maybe. And then that was the last that she could say about it. And when that announcement came, it actually came in on Friday morning, right before everything started. And so they came down to the wire to get them in, but they got it. And I'm really excited for Method. I think they're going to have a nice showing.
They started off strong. At least they're 1-0 right now, and
Yes.
they swept their games, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they're right up there with Team Liquid and Dignitas and Fnatic and all that kind of stuff. So that's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, and that's to be expected. That the EU rankings just fell right into place from the teams that have gone into. They've just fell right in there.
They really did. It's like everybody that was at the top before. Guess what? Still at the top. They're still there.
Stayed there.
Anything else HGC related that you wanted to chat about?
Last thing I wanted to let you guys know is that there's only 4 more weeks before the Western Clash in Katowice. And so that starts in March, March 2nd. So like I said earlier, every game counts. It does. This is the qualifications happening to get them into going to the Western Clash. So it's exciting stuff. It's not none of these games are kind of brush off games. Watch them if you're interested, because it really could turn the tides for some of these teams.
All I know is it's very difficult right now with all of the different esports that are going on. You have to select wisely, and I think this weekend would be a good weekend for HGC. It sounds like there's going to be a lot of good matchups, so make sure to check it out. Jules Scott, thank you so much for joining me today, and we will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
See you guys later.
Overwatch League Week 2 is in the books, and with this very new pro gaming league, I thought might as well bring Thyst back and say hi to everybody. Hi, Thyst.
Hello.
Hello. So let's talk a little bit about Week 2, and we saw some teams do very, very well, and some teams do shockingly inconsistently. Let's call it that.
That's a nice way of saying very badly, very poorly, terribly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not terribly. It's funny because you have to think of if I was playing against that team, would I do very well? No.
Right.
Even compared to, I don't know, the Dragons, maybe.
Right.
The worst person on the Dragons is probably 100 years better than I am. So
sure. Absolutely. And just so that we kind of take a look at the standings a little bit, we've got Seoul Dynasty, New York Excelsior, London Spitfire, all at 4-0. And on the flip side of that, we've got Shanghai Dragons, which I think that, when you stack them up against all of the other teams, I think they're kind of the weakest on paper as well. So definitely. I don't think that's too big of a surprise. But then also you have the Dallas Fuel, and I don't get it. I don't get this one. Why are they 0-4 right now?
It's anybody's guess. There's a lot of speculation, and I think from what the players themselves have been talking about, and from all of the speculation going on the internet, it seems like the Dallas Fuel has very strong individuals, and each of these individuals, they're very popular. They've got big personalities, they've got lots of fans. But just because you have great players doesn't mean that they're going to get along. Doesn't mean they're going to have great team cohesion. It doesn't mean that they're going to automatically be able to communicate. And I think everybody who's played on a team in a video game, or even just any kind of team in general, knows that sometimes you just don't synergize with people naturally. Sometimes you just don't click with people naturally. It's like when you start school and you walk into the classroom and you see people and you kind of are friends with them and are able to work with them and communicate with them naturally. But then there are other people that you just don't. And I think maybe a very long-winded reply, that's the reason. And I don't know. It just seems like with huge personalities like the ones they have, it makes sense to me, but right. I don't know.
Well, and it wasn't necessary. Their schedule was, at least it had some challenges because they did have to go up against the Spitfire, and the Spitfire are very, very good. Yes. And they are one of the top ranked teams. But on the flip side of that, the other team that really surprised me was one of their one of the teams that they went up against, which was the Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws went 2-0 this weekend, which was really, really awesome. So, hey.
That's great. It's cool to see the teams that people weren't necessarily excited to, see succeed are succeeding.
Right.
And I'm really glad about that, because I didn't want to go into this league knowing who was going to be great and who wasn't going to be, and then just watching that unfold, Like, we all knew Seoul Dynasty was going to be fantastic, but we all thought that Dallas Fuel would be fantastic too, and apparently that's not happening. So
apparently not, but who knows? A couple of really good games. What were some games that stuck out to you? Some good matches that stuck out to you in week 2?
Honestly?
Yeah, go ahead.
The first one, the very first one, San Francisco Shock versus Philadelphia Fusion.
Yeah.
That was explosive.
It was.
Shadowburn's Genji, I will never forget that. Those Dragon Blades just kept coming. It looked like he was cheating,
Right.
It was incredible. And I think I mentioned last week I was really excited, morbidly excited, I think is what I said, to see the Dragons versus Mayhem. Because, it was the best way to sort of figure out who was better,
Right. And we figured it out. It's not the Dragons.
We did. No, it is not. But they did try. It was a good match.
Right.
And I'm really proud of Florida. Honestly, the more I see Florida just in the studio, just coming out, doing their quirky entrances and stuff, they're cute. I don't know.
Should we talk about that just for a second? Because I have a thing about this. So we have some of the guys when they're introduced and they come out onto the stage, some of them do goofy little weird things, and I think Florida did this, and I think was it Philly also did some weird stuff. I can't remember exactly who did it, but they're doing these weird little dances as they come out, which is great. It's fun.
Yeah.
Right. But then they introduce some teams and they just walk out, and just very, very calmly, and they're deadpan face, and they're
like New York.
I'll hit hands.
They did the hands thing, and it looked like they didn't really want to. Honestly,
looked like there were a bunch of germaphobes going down the thing. I have to do this.
Yeah. Legit though, if I was making money playing video games, I wouldn't let anybody touch my hands, Well, just as a precaution, I'd be these are my money makers. I'm sorry. Right. I need these.
They should hold those giant foam fingers, but have them be high fives.
Yeah.
So then they can hit the foam fingers and be fine.
There you go. Eliminates that problem. They don't have to touch anybody. They hardly have to stick their arms out at all. It's all good.
Right. Bunch of germaphobes. Oh god, that's funny. A couple of the games that were actually really good were, I think, the Philly and Los Angeles game, the Gladiators game, and that went 2-3 to the Gladiators, and again, it the Valiant and the Spitfire, very good, solid matchup. So there were definitely some really good games, and actually the last one of the week 2. Boston versus San Francisco. Another really good matchup. And that I thought that was really telling, kind of putting kind of the middle of the pack into perspective a little bit.
Absolutely. It did seem like the lineup this week was a lot more even than last week. I was afraid that it would just be this team is better than that team, and so they're just going to get all the points, and it's not going to be that exciting. It's going to be exciting regardless, but what Overwatch is doing is creating this hype, and you can't take your eyes off of it. And when it's an even match and you're just seeing both sides pull out all the stops, pull out their best heroes, and just play the game better than anybody can, that's what I want to see. And that's what I saw this week, and it was friggin' cool.
It is really cool. It's actually, it was really awesome this last week. I'm kind of looking forward to a couple of matchups this week as well. Is there anything that is on your radar for this upcoming week that you are looking to as being an exciting game anyway?
I mean, Los Angeles versus Los Angeles for obvious reasons.
Sure.
I'm a huge Gladiators fan, but I know that Valiant, will more than likely take it. Dragons versus Soul Dynasty, I kind of don't even want to watch.
You just want to avert your eyes.
Yeah,
No, you know what?
on.
I'll just take a pass on this one. That one's that's fine.
Let's just
we do
hope
have
for the best.
We do have Soul Dynasty versus NYXL though, and that should be fantastic.
That's going to be great.
That promises to be really, really cool.
I can't wait.
And also kind of the one that is kind of interesting to me, and again, it's kind of more of a middle of the pack thing. It's Los Angeles Gladiators versus Houston Outlaws. So, and that's on Saturday. So there are a few games this week that that look to be very interesting.
Yeah. And we've got Dallas Fuel versus San Francisco and Boston. And I don't know how that's gonna go. I don't know. I mean, I think
Right.
the week after this week they're going against China, so maybe that'll be
Right. Well,
a good game for Dallas Fuel fans like me.
Yeah, I guess we will see, because I mean, San Francisco and Boston are both kind of mid-pack kind of teams right now, and it'll be. I hope that they can pull out a win here. I'm rooting for them.
They're my team, like burn blue all the way. It is sad to see any team without a win so far,
Yeah.
Like I hope everybody gets a win at some point, as sad as that sounds, but like I just want Dallas to do better. Maybe they're just like warming up. Maybe this is all just like a practice run or something like that, right?
Maybe,
that could be a thing.
Maybe it's just stage one, right? However, they are going to be missing one of their players, XQC, for I don't even know how to really describe it, but maybe you can go into it.
I can.
What exactly happened with XQC? This last week? Yeah.
He just so everybody knows, like he's my favorite player. Like I've got Canadian bias. He's on my favorite team. I think he's funny. I like his streams. I think he's a talented guy. But the thing is, like, he just doesn't think before he speaks. Ever.
Sure.
Ever. And like telling the story, like, I don't think that he's a malicious person. I don't think that he's a mean person. I don't think that he's a homophobic person. I don't think that. I really don't. But, I guess that's up for anybody's interpretation. But what happened was he was streaming and he was playing with Muma from the Houston Outlaws, and he made a joke. I don't know if I can say it here, but he told Muma to suck something.
Sure.
And you can probably guess what that was. And then he said something like, "You'd like that," alluding to the fact that Muma is gay. And, you can see the footage of him saying that, and that he feels immediately regretful after he says that, because he knows he shouldn't have,
Sure.
And he did apologize shortly thereafter publicly on Twitter. And Muma, said, "It's all good. I accept your apology. I know that you weren't, I know you didn't mean anything by that, really." And it was an interesting. I don't know. I didn't know that Muma was gay, and I think that's great. I don't know if he's like come out and said that yet, but that's awesome for like the whole diversity issue
Right.
in Overwatch League. And he said that he's proud to be one of homo. What did he say? He said he alluded to the fact that there was like more gay people in Overwatch League. So there's more, apparently.
Well, I know that he's an openly gay player and all that kind of stuff. But what XQC did say was a code of conduct violation, and so it was what was it, like a $2,000 fine and 4-game suspension from the league. And then Fuel said, "Nope. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna bench him for the entire rest of stage 1."
Yep.
Which is huge.
And that includes practices. Yes.
Wow.
That's huge. So he's not practicing. He's not playing at all.
And again, this kind of goes back to our conversations as we get into what does it take to be a pro player in any sport, really. And it could be video games. It could be football. It doesn't matter. You're going to have a code of conduct.
Yeah.
And you better pay attention to it. That's
absolutely.
And I will say that these guys are kids because they're half my age. So screw it. And so it is kind of one of those things where these kids are trying to figure it all out. So, yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be hard for everybody, and there's a lot of pressure. And if you're already the type of person who doesn't think before they speak, like, you're going to have a problem. And we know that, history has shown that XQC has an issue with keeping his mouth shut and stuff like that. But, he's taking this really well.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling people not to stand up for him. Like, he's taking his punishment and he's trying to learn from it. He does feel bad. Like, I follow him on all his social media. Like, he's just been completely down on himself. And he's imploring the league to donate his fine to LGBTQ charity. And if they don't do that, then he's going to donate his own money to a charity.
Oh, that's great.
That's
just,
awesome.
That's awesome.
He's not a mean guy.
Sure.
And this whole thing, like, if they weren't signed to this massive contract, and if they weren't representing the league and their teammates and Blizzard itself,
right,
then this whole thing would have just been nothing,
Right.
Like, gamers talk that way to each other all the time. That's just part of the culture.
Yes.
I'm not saying that
we're not trying to legitimize it. We're just saying it is what it is.
Yeah, it's just something that happens. It's not like oh my God, I can't believe he even said that. Like, nobody does that when playing games competitively in Overwatch when you get tilted.
If anybody gets tilted, if you've ever played competitive anything ever, it's the same.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go. I mean, it's people just kind of lose it and go off, and then they snap back and they go, wow, I just kind of went outside my body for a little bit.
Exactly. We've all done it.
And maybe this was the case here. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, especially if he comes back and says, hey, I want to donate some money or make sure that this gets to the proper charity and all that kind of
Absolutely.
stuff.
So, and
that's
Blizz
cool.
is making an example of him immediately. So hopefully this won't happen again.
Yep.
And he's taking it really well.
And that really is the thing. Especially this first year, everybody is going to learn the hard way about what it takes to be a pro player. Everybody.
That's true.
And so you got to make strong examples, and this is one of them. I want to talk to you about something a little bit lighter, actually a lot lighter, that you actually wrote about this week in Double Tap. That's dbltap.com. You can find it there, and it kind of correlates Overwatch League with another industry. Wondering if you can go
I
into
have
this.
no idea what you're talking about. What industry, Pat?
Well, you wrote the story. I'll let you handle.
Yeah, but I'm forgetting. Like, you're going to have to be more specific. I don't know what you're talking about.
So it's Overwatch League versus porn. Online porn. So what are you... It's kind of a ridiculous story.
But it's true.
It's fun, though. So it's okay. I'll let you go through the details a little bit.
Oh, okay. Well, last week, the website, and I'm sure nobody knows it, it's called YouPorn, shared these graphs kind of explaining that during the initial Overwatch League broadcasts during the first week, they saw a significant dip in site traffic. And as the broadcast progressed, like, it kept going down. I think on the first day, YouPorn had like a 9% drop in viewers. And then that sort of continued until it was over. And then it went back up. So,
well,
I don't know. We all know that Pornhub, they release like yearly statistics, and apparently Overwatch is still, among the highest searched things of that year, and it was the same last year. I believe it was
Overwatch on Pornhub.
Yes,
right.
And it's the number one search in Brazil for 2 years running at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, let's go to Brazil. But yeah, no. So like,
make sure to bring your Tracer outfit. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll bring my Tracer outfit. We'll see what's going on.
If you would like to wear a Tracer outfit, that would be great. I would appreciate some pictures and a few videos.
You got it.
But thank you. But yeah, so Overwatch the game is dominating porn. Blizzard is probably not monetarily benefiting from that, but popularity is good. And the first week that Overwatch League comes out, it is literally so popular that people are not watching porn, which is scientifically like 90% of what all humans are doing all of the time. Right?
I don't know. You'd have to. I don't have the.
I'm pretty sure that's science. I'm pretty sure.
I'm pretty sure the science is clear on this one. Stuff is happening.
I mean, I don't have to explain it, obviously, but I just there's graphs. There's graphs. They release graphs about this, just the site traffic going down during those very specific times that Overwatch League was broadcasting. So if that is not a measure of true success, what is,
Right. If people are not watching porn to actually watch the actual game itself being played, that spells success.
Yes. Congratulations, Blizzard, on your success.
Way to go, Overwatch. You've done it.
You've peaked already.
Right.
You can't do
You're
anything better
changing
than that.
people's behaviors.
Yes.
Right. And now I feel dirty. I think we need to get out of here. Is there anything else for Overwatch League that has, I was going to say has come up this week, but after that last story, I don't think I can.
Don't. It's so hard for me right now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
It is difficult.
So with that, I guess we'll just say thanks, Thyst, very much. And I'm sure that we will talk to you soon about more Overwatch League goodness.
Yes.
And porn. So that is going to wrap it up for this week on Battlenet Sports. We hope that you enjoyed it. And once again, if you want to hit us up and let us know how we're doing, that would be really, really cool. You can do it on Twitter at ConvertToRaid or me at Pat Crane. Or you can send an email, converttoraid@gmail.com, or you can leave comments below if you are on YouTube. All right, that's it for everybody here at Convert to Raid. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.